Microsoft Loop is a co-creation experience from Microsoft that brings together your Microsoft 365 content across apps like Teams, Outlook, Word, and more to allow you to collaborate more effectively with members of your team. In this Virteva tech tip, I'm going to teach you how to access Microsoft Loop, provide you with an overview of the interface, review the difference between Loop Workspaces and Loop components, and teach you how to create Loop pages from scratch with the help of Microsoft Copilot. So the first question you may be asking yourself is, how do I actually access Microsoft Loop? And there's a couple different ways you can do this. The first way you can do it is by visiting loop.microsoft.com or its new address, loop.cloud.microsoft. Alternatively, you may wish to use the Windows Store app instead, in which case, on a Windows 10 or Windows 11 computer, open up the Windows Store, search for Microsoft Loop, and then click the download button to install Loop. Once Loop is installed, you can open up the application and sign in with your organization's login information. The Microsoft Loop app can also be pushed directly to members of your organization by your IT administrator. All right, let's get into the video with an overview of Microsoft Loop. So let's start with a quick walkthrough of the Microsoft Loop portal in a web browser. So today we're going to be using Microsoft Edge. You'll get the same experience in Chrome, Firefox, Arc, no matter what web browser you're using. So I'm at the main portal page. This is where I'm going to see my workspaces, my recent components and pages, and different ideas. Up in the top left corner, you're going to see the Loop icon or logo. If you click on this at any point in time while you're in Loop, it will always bring you right back to this page for easy access. Directly next to that in the left is the notification bell. If you're ever mentioned in a Loop component, no matter where it is it will show up in this notification area to give you quick access to be able to dive into the area where you were mentioned that needs your attention. If we come over to the far right side of the screen, we can see the ... menu, which will end up taking us into settings. If we open that up, we can see different settings, also the ability to provide help and feedback, see what's new in Loop specifically. So here you can see kind of a pop out of what's new, all the things that Microsoft has been adding to the Loop experience over the past several months. And then again, you get the option to go in and change any settings that you may want. So if I click open settings, I can use the system theme. I can change it to light. I can change it to dark. I can choose how do I want my new pages to appear at the bottom or the top. We're going to leave that at top by default for now. Accessibility options are also available along with some privacy options. You can click into each of these links for additional details. If you click on the upper right icon next to the ... menu, this is just going to be your profile. So this is how you would sign in and sign out. So when you visit loop.cloud.microsoft or you sign in using the Windows Store app, the first thing that'll happen is you'll end up on a splash page telling you what Microsoft Loop is. And then from there, you'll be asked to sign in order to access your individual Loop experience for your organization. So next up, we're going to talk about the Workspace, recent component, and page and idea areas. These are kind of a few different views that you'll get inside of the Microsoft Loop app. So here we can see Workspaces is showing me all the different workspaces that I belong to. You can create new ones by clicking on the plus to create a new workspace, and we're going to showcase that in just a moment. You also have the ability to see all of your recent components and pages. So again, keep in mind that Microsoft Loop is more than just this view. There is components and pages, which will make a little bit more sense in a couple of moments. But whenever you create a workspace component or a Loop component in something like Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Teams, Word, Whiteboard, etc., it'll all show up under this area. So you can see a number of different kind of Loop components that I've touched recently, and they're all here and available. If I was to click on any of these specifically, it would take me directly into one of these Loop components to see when I touched it, what I did with it, and then it would also give me the ability to click in further. If I click on the meeting notes area. This is actually a brand new feature that was introduced in Microsoft Loop not that long ago, recording this video in July of 2024. But you now have the ability that if you have a recurring meeting, you can automatically create a workspace in Microsoft Loop to help kind of share notes in one space where everyone can kind of come together. So this is just another way that Microsoft is trying to push Loop out there and Loop awareness to more folks and more organizations. Finally, the Ideas tab. This gives you the idea to create a new Loop component. So to do an example here, I'm going to click New Component. It'll start off with the ability to give it a title. I can add an icon to make it stand out. So we'll use this compass. And then I can also add a cover image. So by default, you have the ability to search a number of different stock photos or just randomize. One of the features that's not currently in Loop today that I would like to see them add is the ability to upload your own custom content. So this icon of pencils is a perfectly good example. You also have the ability to search additional stock images as well. So for right now, I'm just going to add this with pencils. And then you'll also see the ability to come down and choose from a variety of different pre-filled templates. So we're going to come back to this Loop component in just a moment. Next, I want to show you what it takes to create a workspace. So we're back at the home portal here. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a brand new workspace. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on this plus button here, as I mentioned earlier. And that's going to give me the ability to create a new workspace. I'm going to call it my new Loop workspace for Copilot. I'm going to add an icon on here again, just to kind of differentiate itself. If I wanted to invite new members to participate in this Loop workspace, I can do that. But oftentimes when I'm setting up a fresh Loop workspace, what I'll do is I will invite the members afterwards so that they don't have to see all the noise of me creating things on the back end. So I'm going to click continue. It's going to give me a list of suggested files that I may want to include. So you can see that I do a lot of different things with Microsoft Copilot. We'll add one of these documents in just so that you can kind of get a feel for what that's going to look like. And now I'm going to click Create Workspace. And it's going to spin this up. So we've created our new workspace. You can see that the two files that we referenced were both pulled in by default. And Microsoft also created us with a default untitled page to be part of that workspace. So I want to click on these files just so you can kind of get a better idea of what it's going to look like when you open it. So basically these are two PowerPoint decks that I've been working off of. It's going to open them as links in their own separate tabs so that you can easily interact with them within your browser window. So again, I mentioned that we already have created an idea to start with here. So we don't necessarily need to start and rebuild a page from scratch. Instead, let's actually come up to the ideas area where we created that idea. So here's our Loop component, and then let's open that up. What we're going to do next is we're going to spice this up a little bit. So we're going to take this idea, we're going to continue to build on it, and we're going to do that by looking at the template gallery. So for all intents and purposes for this video, we can use any of the multiple templates they have here. They have close to 24, and then you can also build your own. What we're going to do is we're just going to create a quick Scrum board. So say I'm a project manager, I want to create something that's fairly quick and easy for my purposes, but I don't necessarily want to sit down and build it all out myself. So we're going to take this template and we're going to apply it. We're going to click Use Template. And now it's taken that idea page that I had initially started and it's actually built it into a Scrum board. So we also have the ability that we can see up top where this is located. So the Scrum board is located under Ideas. We also can see sensitivity labeling. So if your organization is one that uses Microsoft's built-in sensitivity labeling through Microsoft Purview Information Protection, you can build out sensitivity labels and apply them directly to your Loop component. So for right now, I'm just going to click on General to apply a label. And at any point in time while you're using or updating ideas or Loop components or pages, you can also see if there's multiple people in the page at the same time that are doing co-authoring. If at any point in time we needed to share this workspace or share a link, we also have the ability to see shared locations. where those locations are at, or add it to a workspace, which we're going to do here shortly. We can copy it as a loop component. So if I copy this message and then I pull over my Microsoft Teams window and I just right click and paste that in, you can see that the loop component's going to show up and then it's going to pre-populate. So I would actually have the ability to send this message. It exists as a component inside of Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Word, wherever I put it, and then it would update in real time. So I'm going to minimize this Teams window, but on my side window here, I'm going to start typing so that you can see that I'm actually editing this in a completely different app. So again, you can see that I'm editing this in Microsoft Teams. If I click directly into the app, I could add more information here, draft with Copilot, or I can do a / that gives me the ability to insert quite a bit more detail here into my page, from general items like tables, checklists, bullet lists, to text styles, templates that we saw earlier, communications, emoji pickers. I can add labels, I can record videos, I can even plug directly into different Microsoft apps like GitHub, Planner, and even Whiteboard. So again, this is just showing you a little bit more power that you have within your page or your idea. And then again, you have the ability to share this as a page link. If I click that, it gives me the page link and then it copies it to the clipboard. Or I can also take the loop component, which I did previously, and put that into another window. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this idea, we're going to copy the loop component, and then we're going to head back over to our loop workspace. So within our loop workspace, we can see that we have the two attachments that we brought in as links and then the blank page. Rather than creating a new page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, new link, and then I'm going to paste the address in. You can see that it automatically filled the text to display to Scrumboard, and I'm going to click add. So now any member of my team that has access to this workspace has access to that Scrumboard idea. And you can also see that it has an icon here displaying that it's a link. So within the pages themselves, you have the ability to create sub-pages. You have the ability to share the page link, share the loop component, rename and change the style. You also have the ability to recap, which I'm going to show off here in a moment when we use Copilot. And also, if you're creating multiple pages, you may want to be able to duplicate them if you're doing the same thing week over week. A perfect example of that is Holly, myself, and Chris often work together on podcasts. We have a pre-show format where we use loop components to build out what topics we're going to talk about on the show. And then we update those in real time as we have time. And then rather than recreating that the following week, every week with new tables, is we just duplicate the old workspace and then give it a new name. I also mentioned that you have the ability to save pages as templates. So once you create a page, if you want to use that page over and over again, like in, for example, in the Scrumboard's case, you can click on Save Page as a Template, and then basically just come down, and it's as easy as clicking Save as a Template. You can change the title, you can change the icon, anything that is going to make it easier for you to use these in Microsoft Loop. So earlier I mentioned that when a new workspace is created, it creates a default untitled page. So now I'm going to show you the capabilities that a licensed Copilot for Microsoft 365 user would have within Microsoft Loop. So over on the right-hand side of the page, you can see a Copilot icon. If I click on that Copilot icon, it will give me the ability to interact with the Copilot dialog box. After clicking on the dialog box, it gives me the option to ask Copilot to draft content or choose a button for examples. So if I choose Create, Brainstorm, Blueprint, or Describe, Copilot will give me a couple of different examples of what it can do for me. So you can see that it's pre-filling that box with different ideas each time that I click it. It's also giving me ideas to brainstorm, or blueprint, or describe. So I like this one, for example, describe the importance of two-factor authentication to a kid. The only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this prompt slightly to say, describe the importance of two-factor authentication to an individual with a high school education. I'm going to click on send, and Copilot is going to begin creating a draft for me. So Copilot's created me a very quick informational guide here in the context that I've given it. If I want to go a little bit deeper here, I can go even further by asking it to rewrite. So I'm going to say, rewrite this, provide me with a detailed overview of the importance of two-factor authentication, include pictures and links to other relevant websites. Let's see what Copilot can do. So Copilot's rewritten the document. It's given me a little bit more detail than I initially had. Unfortunately, it didn't bring in any web links. It also didn't bring in any photos. So I'm going to grab a couple of those and then I'm going to insert those into the document. All right, and we're back. So I've added a little bit more flavor to this loop page. So I've given it a title, I've given it an icon, a new header updated on the top. I've also added some inline images and some additional details around two-factor authentication, including a video that links over to Apple's description of what is two-factor authentication from their support page. So again, this kind of just goes to show you that by using Microsoft Copilot with a loop page is you can create content much faster, and then all you really need to do is just polish it up. So earlier we used an example of how you can share a loop component from Teams into Copilot and co-author back and forth. Now I want to show you what it would look like to do that with Microsoft Outlook. So I'm going to copy this loop component. It's on my clipboard, and now I'm going to pull over a Microsoft Outlook window. I'm sending Chris an email to tell him to check out this loop page for more information. And then I'm pasting it in line within the email. And again, you can see that everything that was in that loop component automatically showed up directly in the email. So I'm going to send this over to Chris, and I'm sure he'll get a kick out of it. So one thing to keep in mind too is if a recipient doesn't have access to the loop component that they're in, you do need to provide access to it first. So we're actually going to back out. We're going to come up to that loop page, and we're going to add Chris into this page. I'm going to click on invite, and you'll see here that we're sending him an email link right now, and then he'll show up as a member here once he's joined the page. I should be able to go back to that Outlook email, and now Chris will be able to click on that email, join in, and then see it. So one other thing to keep in mind too, and we get this question a lot, is loop components and loop pages seem great, but how do I know who's editing what? And you've kind of seen back and forth a little bit as I've been editing the video that every now and then you'll see a little text indicator show up kind of in this area or in line. So I sent this loop component to one other person on our team named Evan, and we can see now that he's in the loop component up in the top, editing this in real time. So you can see that we have 3 Workspace members now. Evan is actually in the document right now working with me. As we're looking at this, that Evan is making updates in real time within the document. And this again just is here to show you the power of being able to collaborate with multiple individuals in one document at the same time without having to save those changes and pass the document back and forth. So one last thing that I want to cover specifically on pages and workspaces and loop components in general is the question that we get quite frequently is, well, if everyone's working on it, how do I know who made the changes? And the answer to that is pretty easy, and it's version control. So if I come up to the top right of the component, again on that .det menu, is I'll have the ability to look at version history. So looking at version history on this document, I can see all the way back to when I initially created it at 1:04 p.m. to the last edit that was made at 2 p.m. by Evan. If at any point in time I wanted to revert back to an earlier version of this document, it's the same way as it would act in any sort of shadow history or version history type document. You just click on the date and time you want to go to, and you click on the restore button. One of the other interesting things that you can also see is as you're going through the document, you'll also be able to see character indicators, such as the one that was just there a moment ago, of where changes were made. So if I restore this document, it refreshes the document and you can see what's changed as well as some indicators telling me that someone had changed that. Now, if I wanted to go back and restore that back to another version history, I can go back and I can change that back to the last known version before I changed it. One other handy feature on a Microsoft Loop page is the ability to keep recaps in place for what may have changed. So you can do that by clicking on the ... menu in the top right corner and then clicking on recap. And this gives you the ability to create a new recap to recap changes, keep teammates in the loop, and stay up to date on what's happening within the page. So I'm going to click on create a new recap. I'm going to come down to the page and I'm going to add in a quick new segment of text here. I'm going to do a quick @mention to Chris and I'm going to say, check out what I changed. And then I'm going to click on post. And now when Chris comes in here and clicks on this, he'll see a quick recap that I left for him on the document. So what are my final thoughts? Microsoft Loop is designed for teams who want to think, plan, and create together, making it a great tool for businesses, educators, and creative professionals alike. It's clear that Microsoft Loop is not just another collaborative platform, it's a feature-rich experience that stands on its own unique category. While it shares collaborative spirit from similar products like Notion, offering a dynamic canvas for teams to brainstorm, plan, and create together, Microsoft Loop distinguishes itself with its fluid components that work across multiple applications, redefining what it means to work in sync. At the same time, Loop leans into the comfort zones of many Microsoft OneNote users with its note-taking and organizational prowess, yet it's not directly a replacement for OneNote either, evidently so by the recent addition of Loop components into OneNote. Instead, think of Loop as more of an evolution of OneNote, leaning into the same lane, but accelerating with more collaborative features that cater to the ever-changing landscape of collaboration and productivity. And then lastly, there's Copilot for Microsoft 365. It seamlessly integrates with Microsoft Loop as an additive experience, but not necessarily a required one, enhancing the experience by providing intelligent insights, drafting content, and streamlining tasks. As we look to the future, it's evident that Microsoft Loop, with the support of Copilot, is poised to transform the way that we collaborate, making our digital interactions more intuitive, efficient, and most importantly, connected. Thank you again for taking the time to join me for this tech tip. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons below the video. If you have additional questions or need help with Microsoft 365 solutions, you can contact us directly at letstalk@virteva.com or by visiting our website at www.virteva.com. Thanks again for tuning in and have a good one.